pops up after the webinar ends. It only takes about 30 seconds to fill out, but gives us a lot of great information on how we can continue to make our webinars better for you. And now I'm here with Ken Frisco, who will give you a bio of the speaker.
Okay, thank you. Just a little background on Armida Mockery. She is a change agent technology executive with extensive experience at all dimensions of leading-edge technology and applications, with a foundation in software engineering and real-time programming. For the last 10 years, she has been helping clients leverage to drive down the costs, errors, and time of manually intensive processes with rapid ROI. Prior to that, as a Bell Labs department head for over 20 years, she led all aspects of R&D and the total lifecycle management of globally deployed network operations and messaging systems. Our next speaker, Tom Gannon, is a certified credit executive and has a BS from the University of Maryland. He's experienced in multiple industries such as construction and wholesale distribution, manufacturing and professional electronics and power tool industries, wholesale distribution to retail hobby industry, consumer finance, and credit card management. Tom presently is the Director of Research and Credit Education for the Federation of Credit Financial Professionals and a former NASM affiliate board of directors member. So with that, I'll pass it back to Armida to start the presentation.
Thank you, Tom. I'm delighted to be with you here today to talk about human intelligence automation. What we're going to do, Tom and I, today is to first I'll define or try to give you a good sense of what human intelligence automation is, and then actually do show you a video that demonstrates the technology so you get a concrete feel for what human intelligence automation is. And then we'll go on to show illustrative examples in the credit decisioning and accounts receivable management area. And finally, we'll close with the value proposition and then questions and answers. So human intelligence automation is a horizontal thought, it's a horizontal concept, and it can be applied across any industry where there's manual processing. Today we'll concentrate in the credit decisioning and accounts receivable management area. And basically what human intelligence automation is, it's automating all the manual processes that exist in your environment. And so whether typically there are silos of information with people trying to go in and out of these systems, whether they be legacy or Excel or PDF or email systems, and go in and out of these systems, then create information from them, maybe have lots of Excels that are floating around, maybe doing some swivel chair operations between systems inside and outside the firewall where there's silos of information. And so what human intelligence automation does then is where there are people that are searching, capturing, and discovering information in virtually any kind of system, whether it's inside or outside the firewall, whether it's in any kind of ERP system or legacy system, or whether it's a website or a PDF or Excel or Word or web searches. So where there are people that are going in and out of these systems, they're then trying to capture, to analyze, process, conclude, and create information from the data they've captured or they've got, and then when they try to then update or either another system or publish on a web page or create information in an Excel or send email alerts or send alerts of any kind, then human intelligence automation can then be trained, can then be taught to then implement all these manual processes that people are doing across all the systems, and in a way that then people can just handle exceptions. And typically what these systems human intelligence automation systems implement these processes automate these processes across all these systems without change to any of the systems and honoring all security protocols. Another way of looking at it, but when I talk about human intelligence automation, or when we talk about human intelligence automation, we're actually talking about a class of tools that sometimes are called robotic process automation. And so these tools then typically have designers or some sort of a user interface where after the business analyst has specified the process that needs to be automated at a training level, a training manual level, then someone can use the tool, this human intelligence automation tool or the robotic process automation tool, to then implement that process. And so typically these tools have a set of building blocks that can be strung together to emulate a business process. And again, the process is specified at the level that you and I would describe the process to one another. And so there are building blocks that enable one to go in and out of to read and write to virtually any digital architecture, whether it's a web-based system, whether it's any kind of ERP system or a CRM system, or whether it's a project plan or a spreadsheet or a PDF, whether it's a mainframe, whether it's a green screen system, whether it's a database, whether it's an email. So there are building blocks that enable one to go in and out of virtually any digital architecture without change to any of these systems and honoring all security protocols. So the human intelligence automation can actually log in just as a person would. And so they're built. So one can pull from one system, push to another. One can pull from many, and then there are building blocks that enable one to analyze the data, in just any way that a user would, and a person would. And then there are building blocks that enable one to present the information to people on a web portal, email alerts, however one would like to present the information. And what's special about these is that there's no change needed to any of these systems. It honors all security protocols. It implements these building blocks are strung together at the level that you and I would describe the process to one another, very high level. And further, they are, in some cases, some of the tools, the building blocks are auto-adapting, so that if, for example, one would train a step to read something on a screen, and that field then is moved. Somebody changes that screen so that the field moves to the lower. It's trained to read the screen where the field is in the upper left, and then if someone trains, somebody moves that field to the lower right-hand part of the screen, as long as that information is still there, the application will still continue to run without having to be retrained. So the only place that there's any code, if you will, human intelligence automation code, is on a server, which can be inside or outside of, it can be in the cloud or on your premises, but certainly within your firewall. So I'm going to give you an example or an idea of how these applications are created. This is an example of one tool where you start with a blank canvas. This is the designer, and you start with a blank canvas, and these are the building blocks that are on the toolbar. So in this particular example, this happens to be a supply chain, a snippet of a supply chain example, where the third-party logistics provider is doing drayage. They need to pick up containers from a port or a terminal, and rather than having the dispatcher having a stack of pickup orders on his or her desk that they then go through from the top to the bottom, where they actually go and log into a terminal website or a carrier website and find out the availability of a container, and then put that on the bottom of the stack again, and continually do that. this application that I'm going to show you then automates that process. And so, as I've said, these are the building blocks. They're called wizards on the toolbar. And so, so then you start with a blank canvas, and in our case, and so there are wizards then for virtually any operation that one would like to do, including fuzzy matching. And then there are wizards for going in and out of virtually any digital architecture, whether it's a website or a mainframe or Excel, Word, and so forth, attachments. And so one starts with a blank canvas, and then in our case, our list of containers that we're interested in is in an Excel. So we pull down the Advanced Read Excel. And then for all those containers that have not yet been picked up, we want to then go to the appropriate website to find out the status of the container. So we'll pull down the the filter wizard and put that here. And then for all the containers that have not yet been picked up, we want to go to the website, so we pull down the repeat wizard and put that here. And then we want to go to the website to check the container status, so we'll pull that down here. And then based on what we find in terms of the status of the container, then we want to take different actions. So we pull down our if-then-else wizard and put that here. And then if the container is ready for pickup, and we have to concatenate a number of different conditions to understand that. So we say, is it freight released, and if it's customs released, and so forth, then it's ready for pickup. And so if that's yes, then we pull down the send email wizard and put that here, that we want to send a pickup notice to the dispatcher. And in any case, we want to insert the current status into the Excel. And so how do we train a step? So we train a step by the appropriate place in the sequence, and then by actually bringing up the website that we want to interact with, filling in the appropriate information, for example, an ID and a legal container number. We hit search, and then when the screen comes back, then we highlight those fields where that we'd like this step to read. And so then, and that populates what sits behind this step. So we've trained it. And what's special is that if, for example, this container number, somebody changes the screen so that then the container number is then down on the lower right as opposed to here on the upper left, as long as there is some form of this label, container number, available on this page and it's unique, then the application will continue to run without having to be retrained. So that this is showing how that one can emulate the manual process at the level that you and I would describe it to one another, and how these can be, how the steps can be trained and how they auto-adapt. What I'd like to do now is to show you an example of this running in real time. It'll be a video, and in this case it's showing a carrier who sends arrival notices to staff, and rather than to the staff then actually going to terminal websites to check the shipment status, then this has been automated. So the business analyst then specifies exactly what these people are doing. They go to this website, they do this, they receive these notices, they actually read fields on these notices, they then go to the appropriate website, get the status, and then do something with it. And so in this case, the business analyst specifies that someone who has been trained in the human intelligence automation tool then takes that specification and implements that application on their desktop, a developer desktop, and then once they have specified it, configured it, and tested it on their desktop, they then move it to a production environment, which can be on in your data center, could be in wherever you have your processing done, whether it's in the cloud or in the on your premises, but certainly behind your firewall. And so this application will show then the actual human intelligence automation then automatically receiving these arrival notices, automatically going to a terminal website to get the shipment status. When the shipment is available, going to sending an email alert to the for example, the dispatcher, and also making the information available on a portal so that then people with the appropriate permissions then can see the status of any container at any time. Okay, I'm going now to switch to the video, and
the processes related to checking shipment status at the ocean terminal are often manual ones. In working with our commercial experimentation partner, we learned that the ocean carrier sends them arrival notices via email prior to vessel arrival. Our partner's staff then begins the manual process of checking the availability status of the containers on the terminal website. Our solution will automate this manual process. The business analyst maps out the steps that a person would perform. The developer teaches the solution to perform those tasks by stringing together wizards to emulate business processes. So rather than checking for availability of each container, the system will send users availability alerts and populate relevant information into a status portal. We will now demonstrate how we have automated the manual processes related to gathering information from carrier arrival notices and terminal websites to provide container availability alerts and a status portal. Instead of showing the final results, we are going to show the drayage tool in the design module so you can see each step of the process. The process starts here. The carrier sends emails which contain arrival notices attached in PDF format. The tool will read the arrival notice and store pertinent information in the database, such as bill of lading number, estimated arrival time and location, estimated container availability, terminal location, and each container number on the bill of lading. The tool then begins checking the terminal website for container availability. Again, we are executing in the design module in order to show the rules and processes which the tool systematically performs. The end user would never see this. We hit run and the tool begins processing. It logs into Global Container Terminal's website, enters the container number, hits search, and reads and records the container status that is returned. You can see it running one container after another. It looks for the following criteria to determine if the container is available for pickup. Freight released equals yes. Customs released equals yes. Exam hold equals no. Terminal hold equals no. In yard equals yes. If all of these criteria are met, the container is available for pickup, so the tool will send an email alert. All of the gathered information is also published on a web portal for viewing by end users. This is the end user portal. End users log into the portal. An end user can have multiple roles, where each role may have different access privileges. We are logged in as administrator, so we will see everything. We can see container status, reports, and administration of the portal. The container status view.
So with that, then we have shown an example, and one of the main benefits of human intelligence automation is that, as you've seen in this video, is that these tools can read actual documents just as a person would. They can read virtually any source just as a person would, and here, for example, a PDF. And there are some tools that do screen scraping, but human intelligence automation goes beyond that. Screen scraping is saying, okay, there's something at a certain point or a certain place in the specific part of the document. Human intelligence automation then is looking for it's artificial intelligence based, and it's looking for information based on patterns, and so it doesn't need to have this field be this certain width. It can find name and addresses no matter what field, no matter what width they are, no matter where they are on the page. And so it's looking for labels rather than for specific places on a page. And this applies then whether it's looking at websites or whether it's looking at AS400s or whatever it is doing. With that then, we're about to show sample applications, but if there are any specific questions at this point, I would be happy to address them.
Sure. I mean, I actually have two questions.
Okay.
The first one is Instano thought of as an RPA software vendor?
Yes.
Can it read handwriting?
No.
That's JPEG? Yeah. Can it read JPEGs?
Yes. Well, it creates JPEGs. Yes.
What kind of person makes a good developer?
A good developer, someone who has about 2 years of modern programming expertise.
What kind of person would not make a good developer?
Let me just explain that. The reason that is the business analyst specifies the process at a training manual level, but the developer has to take into consideration things like error conditions. So, for example, is the website down? Is the website not responding? What do you want to do if you're trying to access something and it doesn't respond in a certain time frame? And so you have to have some knowledge to think about actually putting together this application as a developer would. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm
okay.
sorry.
What kind of person would not make a good developer?
You need someone with about two years of modern programming expertise to be a developer. So that's the only requisite.
Okay, Armida, at this time there are actually no further questions. You can keep moving forward.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, Tom now will take over.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're having a nice day. The purpose of me participating in this is to provide some examples in a real-life credit environment. And one of them is the automation of the cash application process, otherwise known as auto cash. And to give you an idea of my experience with this kind of thing, a recent employer of mine had 250 different billing locations. We generated over 250,000 invoices a month. We had 40,000 open charge accounts, and we get anywhere from 20 to 25,000 checks a month. And I had exactly 4 cash appliers, so that'll put it into perspective in terms of the volume and what you can do, what you can gain by automating some of that process, if not all of it. So the purpose of this is to basically bring the manual aspect of it down to exceptions, as opposed to somebody sitting in front of a terminal with a piece of paper at their left and going down a list and matching up invoices and payments and checking them off and that sort of thing. So by doing that, we can eliminate the consequences of the potential errors in the manual process by cutting down or eliminating misapplied payments, deposits getting lost in a pile of paper, the inability or failure to deliver chargeback notices to the customer. The same thing goes with deductions with the correct internal party to validate whether it's a good deduction or not, and basically try to stay on schedule. And the the metric there with the 72-hour turnaround, that's up to you guys. Whatever it is that you and your company are comfortable with, in the manual world, you may want to do this, have the payment applied within 48 or 72 hours of receipt in the bank. And once you accomplish all of this automation, then you can redirect your staff. I hate to say this, but sometimes eliminate staff. But in a high volume, high transaction, growing environment, what you're going to do is redirect that staff, and you're going to have them do more productive things rather than just checking off invoices. So by doing that, you're going to contribute to cutting costs and increasing profitability. So looking at the manual process, you're going to be receiving payments from a number of sources. Most obvious one is obviously customer payments. Your vendors are going to occasionally cut you a refund check, or perhaps your marketing department sells literature. You're going to get a payment from a customer to buy stacks of paper or whatever, and that money is going to go into a bank in different ways. Many companies will have multiple lockboxes. If you have remote branches, as this company did, those branches are going to be making local deposits, and then you're going to receive checks at your headquarters or wherever your credit department's located, and keeping in mind that credit and AR are sometimes combined, sometimes they're separate, but assuming the combined operation, then that group is going to have to make a bank deposit. And to avoid having to hop in a car and drive it to the local bank to make that, thanks to imaging technology and so forth, we can now do that with a scanner, and nobody has to take time away from their job to go to the bank. So all of this money goes into a bank, and then that, one or more banks are going to provide that information to you electronically in most cases. It's probably safe to say in all cases today, where you'll get a transmission at night that'll tell you how much money was deposited the previous day, and provide a list of the customers and their routing information and so forth. And then typically in a manual process, the next day you will get a package delivered from the lockbox location, whether it's an overnight UPS box or somebody from your organization goes and picks it up, whatever. And you're going to have all of this paper that you then have to match up with the electronic information that you got the night before, and then somebody's got to sit down and update the customer's records. So you've got the cash deposited, the batches are received, you have to apply the cash, and then you have to, unfortunately, identify these nasty little things, deductions. And then once you're done, you've got to file all that paper away in a secure fashion. So when you're actually looking at the cash application process, you're going to have, as I said earlier, you're going to have, in a purely manual circumstance, you're going to have a piece of paper. The cash applier is going to have a piece of paper that is a copy of the customer's remit, and there's going to be invoices on there. And then he or she is going to have to match it up with the same item on the cash application screen and check it off. Unfortunately, there are a lot of circumstances where a customer is not going to pay 100% of an invoice. It can be all kinds of reasons. It can be for pricing. It could be because the delivery was short items. Perhaps they were damaged. All of that sort of thing. Excuse me. Sales tax is another issue. If you're in an environment where, such as the construction wholesale industry, where contractors are typically taxable, You're going to have all kinds of issues having to do with, was I charged the right rate? You know, do you have a valid exemption certificate on file and all that sort of thing. So all of that has to be done manually. It's going to involve sometimes getting up, walking over to a file cabinet, looking something up. Or if you're lucky, you've got an imaging system where you can sign on to that and look for the item. But it's all done manually. And then once you've done all of that, you've got to notify the various parties so that if you definitely have a deduction that you know is invalid, the customer's going to have to repay it. You're going to have to send a notice to the customer detailing what that is. And then that starts, assuming they make the payment, starts the process all over again. There may be an issue where you're not sure if it's a valid deduction, so you're going to have to identify the responsible party. If you only have one billing department, that's not too bad, but if you have 250 of them located across the country, you're going to have to identify from the invoice which of those parties did it, or somewhere else in your system. You're going to have the local branch identified by a number or location. And then in some cases, you're going to have to make a write-off. If you don't want to waste the time to identify every $4 deduction that the customer is going to make, you're going to have an automatic write-off for that. In other cases, you're going to have to identify the reason, look up a GL code, general ledger code, and make that adjustment. So it's a very time-consuming process. And the higher the volume, if you have a seasonal business, it could get worse in your peak season, slack off a little bit. So balancing the amount of staff, the number of staff members you have to have, can be a little difficult as well. So that's the manual process. On the automated side, basically it looks the same. You still have to do everything, but the level of automation is much better now than it was, 20 years ago. But even over that period of time, we were able to manage some automation issues that essentially applied 60% of our checks. That's how I could have 4 cash appliers handling 20,000 checks, as opposed to maybe a couple of dozen. Today's automation process, as Armida described, puts us light years ahead of where we were then. So when you're going through and you have a customer making a deduction because they were charged freight and should not have been, then you've got the ability to program that in. The system is going to read the deduction on the remit, and it's going to say, price discrepancy or something along those lines, and or there's freight, and they're saying we shouldn't pay freight, and the system will then go out and identify someplace in your system where that information is kept. You're going to have a customer database that's going to say, he's being charged prices at level 3, and the price on the invoice was level 4, too high, and it may come back and say, okay, branch number 220 is the one that did this, so it'll automatically generate a note, an alert, if you will, to that branch manager via email or somewhere in the system, and say, hey, so-and-so says you overcharged them in so many words. And then that party will then have to come back and say, no, I didn't, or yes, I did. And if it's yes, I did, he should issue a credit memo. If it's no, I didn't, then, you will automatically generate based on him saying no or checking a box that says no, generate a chargeback notice to the customer, and no one has to physically touch it in the credit department. The same may go for a short receipt. If the customer says, okay, you billed me for 20 of something and I only got 10, the first thing the system will do is identify how the product was delivered. Was it delivered by one of your own trucks, or was it done by a common carrier or UPS? And then it will, based on cross-referencing the invoice number, the shipping document number, the shipping ticket that'll have the bill of lading number on it, or the UPS tracking number, will then notify that particular party that something was disputed, and please provide a proof of delivery. And then that proof of delivery will come back. And you don't have to sit there and look up phone numbers, email addresses, and so forth. It's all done automatically. You have multiple databases that are sitting out there, and the system has the ability, based on that workflow that Armida showed earlier, if this is the issue, go here, and once you get there, if the answer is yes or no, then go 3 or 4 other places, and you don't have to generate all of those phone calls or emails or written notices. It's all done for you. And it definitely speeds up the process. And then as far as the security level is concerned, when you have paper, meaning you have, photocopies of the checks and the remittance advice and so forth, you've got to keep that for a while. So how do you keep that information, particularly if it could be an individual's check, if it's a sole proprietor, if it's a partnership, and a partner sends his own personal check to pay for something, employees are able to buy on an account and they pay for it individually, whatever. That information has to be kept secure, and it's actually a federal law known as the Fair and Accurate Credit Transactions Act, with the acronym FACTA, that requires that. So when you've got paper, you've got to keep that paper out of the hands of someone outside of your control. So, you're going to have your employees lock everything up at night, lock their desk drawers. We had a special file room that had a digital lock on it, things of that nature. When you go to a fully automated process, all that information is kept digitally. You don't have that stuff floating around. Instead of having that piece of paper sitting to the left of your cash applier, they're looking at a second monitor, perhaps. And this is when they're handling the exceptions, because in the meantime, all of the normal stuff has been handled. So, and then you have to worry about all of the proper GL codes, and of course all of those will be listed in your system, and you won't have to worry about that. So basically this slide kind of summarizes everything that both Armida and I have spoken about. In the upper right hand corner, hopefully you'll be able to get the detail captured at the bank level, and most lockboxes will do this. They'll capture everything that's on the customers that remit, for a fee, of course, but it does cut down the overall cost of your cash application process. So you will get that kind of information from a lockbox. If it's something done internally, then you can scan the document, and a lot of that can be read through OCR. And then in terms of applying cash that doesn't have all of that information, because let's face it, sometimes a customer will send a check and not tell you what he's paying. So you can set up a series of algorithms in your workflow plan that says, okay, if the dollar amount of the check matches up to one or more invoices on the customer's account, apply it. If there are multiple invoices of the same amount, you can say apply it to the oldest, or you can have it go through and make it as complicated as, okay, take groups of 5 invoices and add them up and do that process, and then switch to another group of 5 invoices, so on and so forth. All of this stuff can be done virtually instantaneously in a computer environment. So, and then of course at the end you've got to balance the check with the amount that was applied in one way or another, and if there are exceptions, if something doesn't balance, then yeah, you're going to have a cash applier sitting by that can go back and figure out what went wrong. But it does make the process that much faster. And as I said, it does give you the opportunity to have secure digital storage, which is much easier to manage than paper. And most importantly, in terms of customer service, money management, all of this stuff is done overnight, so that when your people come in the morning, all of the prior day's customers' payments are applied. It's going to speed up your order processing process, because if somebody is in a condition where you may have had to hold and review an order, you won't have to do that now. And it just makes your life much more enjoyable, if you will. And then this slide here just gives you an idea of the benefits of automating the deduction process. And the OS&D is overshort and damaged, obviously. As I mentioned, you know, if you're in an environment, say in the construction industry, where contractors are generally taxable, you may have tax deductions. And those can be quite complicated, because hopefully you're aware that the amount of sales taxes that's charged legally is determined by the place of transfer of the product. So if it's picked up at your local branch, whatever rate is applicable there is what gets charged. If it's delivered to the customer's location, likewise, whatever tax rate is appropriate there, or it may go to a job site, which could be in another state. The various tax structures in our country is very complex. Some states have one rate. Some states have a different rate for each county. And then still others have different rates for a city within a county within a state. So there could be, you know, 3 different issues involved. So it can really become complicated when you're trying to track down whether a particular deduction is valid or not. So the more you can automate, you know, there are tax databases out there that can tell you what rate is appropriate by zip code. The human intelligence automation process can look at the delivery address, match it up to that particular database and say yes or no. And then if there's a tax exemption certificate involved, hopefully those can be digitized and the system can then go out and find those. So the amount of time that's spent handling this stuff is dramatically, I mean, dramatically, all caps, reduced. And it does help you to standardize the process. So if you do happen to have multiple cash appliers, you don't have to worry about them all thinking the same way. And the same thing, same circumstances, you're cutting costs and you're increasing profitability. And that's the most important aspect in business, is making a profit so that you can grow and move on. And at the same time, customer service is extremely important. So you want to get the customer's issues resolved as quickly as you can. And when you can automate most of that, it does make it easier so that the exceptions that have to be handled can be handled more efficiently, more effectively, and you have fewer nervous breakdowns on the part of your credit people. So I will now turn it back over to Armida.
Thank you, Tom. Tom spoke about the deduction process. Here is a specific example of an automation. This is Consumer Products that is reconciling its daily deduction report with against other systems. And so, for example, they human intelligence automation automatically receives or looks at the daily deduction report and cross-correlates that with, in this case, Walmart, what Walmart thinks they received, or says they received, and their own, the consumer products' own internal Anacom system, their document system, their invoices, and actually also goes out to carriers to either get the proof of delivery or to request a proof of delivery if the carrier is not automated. And so takes all this information and then correlates it, and then automatically updates systems as appropriate, and sends documentation to the customer service staff, and so that they can then manage any manual work that needs to be addressed, and also provides then management reports to the executives and to the supervision and management. And so all of that then is automated in a standardized way, again with no change to any of these systems that are involved, and on honoring all security protocols. And with the benefits that Tom had mentioned earlier in terms of reducing the timeline for determining for the deduction process, reducing the cost of tied up money and capital, and capturing even small deductions. So, and less impact on the carrier to go into the archives. Okay, so then in general, then what is the value proposition of human intelligence automation? It gives companies new ways to deploy out-of-the-box applications, out-of-the-box thinking applications. So, so now you can think about, well, gee, what if I could do that, and as opposed to then staying within your normal bounds of thinking. You can dramatically reduce the costs, your costs, by automating repetitive manual processes currently in place. This automation is consistent and predictable according to your custom business rules and ways of doing business. You're able to bring together information or data and information from virtually any digital architecture, any place that it exists, and then create sense of it. This can be not only structured data but unstructured data, PDFs, whatever is. It can actually even read in some cases, doing natural language processing. And I had said that for example, Insno did not do handwriting, but there could be a plug-in that Insno uses if you choose that would allow it to read handwriting. And these applications are typically rapidly deployed in weeks and not months and years. And so there's no change required to any of the systems involved. They're auto-adapting, and if you choose to do your own development, then the person, you don't have to have IT involved, but you do have to have someone with about 2 years of modern programming expertise to implement the business analyst's flow that they describe. And so that then is what Tom and I had prepared, and so we would be very happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, I actually have a few questions.
Good.
All right. The first one, how can the different RPA software vendors be differentiated?
You know, I don't have a competitive analysis in front of, to give you, but some of them are the ability to actually read unstructured data is a significant difference.
Next question. Has someone done an assessment of RPA software providers to help with the selection process?
I'm sure they have. I don't have that. I don't have that name.
What are examples of things that can go wrong after a process has been automated for the first time?
examples of what what can go wrong. Well, you know, it typically. I'm sorry. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, I can throw out an example of that. If you're dealing with a high transaction volume environment, and you've got invoices that can range in size from $100 to $100,000 or more, and you're trying to identify how to apply a payment that is not consistently documented with the right information. For instance, some people will use purchase order numbers when they're making their payments as opposed to an invoice number. You've got to take into account that when you're looking for data, that your system looks in both places, that it looks at an invoice number, looks at a purchase order number, so that, and then hopefully they don't match up in two different places with the same number of digits and so forth. When you've got a check that comes in that is not documented at all, you've got to either recognize that you're going to have a lower hit rate on the automated process and switch to a more manual process for a higher percentage of your checks, or you're going to come up with several algorithms that will allow you to look at a high transaction volume and adequately apply the payment, or at least come up with fewer exceptions. Some of that, unfortunately, you're only going to be able to do because the first time around something didn't work. So you have to quickly alter the workflow process. But again, given the fact that most of this stuff does not involve an IT department, where you've got to make sure they have the time to turn around and help you, and all you have to do is go in and rearrange your flow a little bit. And the best way to start with this process is to document your manual process. Go through step by step, do all of the what ifs and do this, and look carefully at that and make sure that you haven't overlooked something. And have somebody check your work. Perhaps have a team of people do it. That you know, one person's not going to overlook something. The fact that an IT department doesn't have to be involved, and you're not going to have to use too much or listen to too much techie speak coming back from a programmer, and you can leave it in your credit and AR language. But again, you're going to have a certain error rate the first time around, and then you just make a quick adjustment. Hopefully that answers the question.
Great. Next question. Does Instano replace OCR?
No, Instano uses OCR, so that if a document comes in, for example, in PDF format, it will OCR it so that it can read it. And it uses OCR software automatically.
Okay, next question. Is the phrase human intelligence automation unique to Instano?
Actually, human intelligence automation is unique to Instano, but I presented that, and you can use that as an analogy for RPA, for robotic process automation.
Can this software be tested?
Absolutely. Well, I don't know what that means. What happens is when one creates an application, then the business analyst specifies the application, or someone does, you know, he has a training manual that says this is what a person would do, and that's what we're calling the business analyst. And then someone who has about 2 years of modern programming expertise that has learned the tool then can then implement that business process, and then that is that is configured, the designer is configured and tested on the developer's desktop, and then deployed once they're happy with it and onto a server on premises or in the cloud, but the customer's premises or cloud. Was that responsive? Was that responsive? I don't know if that was responsive.
Well, I would add one more thing. The best way to do this is once the process is developed, you already have your manual process in place. Run it parallel for a month or two. And what that will do is actually help to answer the first question, or the question about a first time through process working. You'll be able to identify glitches and fix them rather quickly by doing a parallel. In the meantime, you haven't lost much because you're still processing the payments the way you did before.
Next question. Is it free to test the software?
Well, now I'm going to answer this from Instano's perspective, and the answer to that is no. What Instano would do would work with with the client to just define the business case for using the software, and then work with you on like the first increment of it, and so then. And that may or may not be free, the first increment. It depends on the case, on the situation. But Instano would work with whoever would be on the first increment after doing a business case with you.
How long is it?
For you. Yeah.
Sorry, Amita.
Yeah, no, to make sure that it made sense for the user, the end user.
Okay, next question. How long is the developer training class? Where is the training located, or is it online? Is there a developer certification?
Yes, there is a developer certification. There is documented training courses, and what the first training session is. It's not online. The developer with the requisite skills comes to Instano, or Instano goes to their premises, and or it can be done online. We've actually done it online as well, where someone's in California and Instano is at their headquarters in New Jersey. And so how it works is that the client has an application in mind. They have done a level of business analysis so that they know what the steps are that they want to implement, and then they work the training course. There's 2 weeks training course, basic and advanced, and if the training is done for a specific client, then there's the first couple of days of the basic course then are introducing the student to the paradigm, and then the remainder of the time is actually the student working with an Instano professional services person in terms of implementing the client's application. And then the certification is actually that student working with Instano professional services to bring that to actually deploy that application. So bringing it to the deployment stage where it's actually running in their production environment.
Next question. Who is the right person to contact if we are interested in pursuing Instano?
Me, and Armida Macri, and my contact information is at the end of the package.
Great. Well, at this time, there are actually no further questions. When I'm going to send out the PDF version of the presentation later today, I'll include both of your emails so anybody can follow up with both of you directly. Is that okay?
Perfect. Would love it. Would welcome that.
All right.
And I
well,
would just
that,
throw out one more thing, that to keep in mind that this process can be used for any type of workflow environment. So it's not limited in the credit environment to cash application. You can do it with processing credit applications, doing credit investigation, that sort of thing. So the opportunities are pretty significant.
yeah, time to take one more question. Another one just slid in.
Sure.
Okay, can you recommend third-party consultants that provide the developer role?
Actually, Instano will do professional services, and so that would be the people. We do have other people other partners, but I would start with Instano.
Great. Okay, well with that, we are actually going to close today's webinar. I would like to thank both of you for taking the time today to present to our group, and I'd like to thank all of today's attendees for taking out time out of their day to join us. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.